Tracy here. Hope you all had a really wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, and you're still enjoying the remainder of this time of winter, a time of self-reflection, a time of the days still being among the shortest days of the year with the hope of the longer days to come. I started a video prior to the holidays and didn't put it up. It was longer than I wanted, but I've been wanting to, at least in my mind, do maybe a series of videos, I'll see how many, of reasons why I don't want to speak for Don, but why both of us have decided to return to a whole food, plant-based, vegan, mostly vegan diet. And to start out, I'll just preface with saying that through life, sometimes we draw inspiration from those around us who display characteristics or traits that we really admire and we want to emulate, and other times it's kind of the opposite. We see the paths that those around us are going down and we think, well, let me just do the opposite of what that person's doing in order to avoid that person's fate. And sadly, that's the story that I'm going to begin with, and it starts at home. So I certainly had inspiration since young to avoid the plight, beginning with my father, because really by the time I was a child, he went from having been a slender person to a man of not so high stature, obvious, to being at least 80, 100 pounds overweight. So obese. And he really loved eating standard American diet, in a way the epitome of the worst of it. He ended up having adult onset diabetes, to which he was put on meds, to which he developed allergies to which he was put on more meds. And so this vicious cycle just snowballed. And while I was still young, while my parents were even still married, so not even a teen yet, he had already suffered his first minor heart attack. So he really loved his meat, his red meat, his steaks, and potatoes, and cheese, and ice cream. And while he may have eaten vegetables, they were usually laden with very heavy, fatty, salty type condiments, such as being cooked in cream of condensed soups and things like that. Sadly, he died at least 20 or so years ago. I believe maybe 20 years ago, pretty much almost to the day. And suffered probably a stroke or a cardiovascular event. He was under stress and was found in his apartment a day, 2 or 3 days post-mortem. A gruesome end, and my mom, sister, and I cleaned out his apartment, so it was just altogether a gruesome experience. Now, my mom was someone who seemed to be the epitome of healthy for the most part, most of her life. She would get her seasonal bugs, but by and large seemed to be pretty fit, healthy, walked all the time, and retained a real youthful look and energy and vitality about her. But of course, she has dementia, and I'm here with her experiencing this process, and her short-term memory is pretty much non-existent, and the capacity for which her brain can handle is very minimal, and the vocabulary is gone, and what she can retain or handle is minimal. And now, mind you, I love my mom very much. I'm honored and blessed to be able to be here with her. And of course, it's also, if any of you know who have parents who are older who are dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's, it's a pretty sad experience sometimes to watch their decline and their struggles. Now, my mom handles all that fairly well, and over the last several years, I actually got her off statins and high blood pressure medication. She was always someone that had low blood pressure, but her diet and lifestyle, stress or whatever, caused things to change. She developed, or had for who knows how long, hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, and high blood pressure. I just, when I would be around her, would feed her healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and she always would lose some weight and feel better. But she's not in my control 24/7, and so I do my best on the days I'm with her to bring healthy food or get something healthy out. But nonetheless, witnessing these two of my closest role models in my life suffer mentally, cognitively, and physically is a big inspiration to me to not go down their paths. Now, Don's parents as well, since I've gotten to know them, they also had their own health issues. Don's father had prostate cancer. He had to have a catheter. His mom had her own heart cardiovascular issues. Both had open heart surgery at one point or another. He in his 70s, and he survived it. She at the age of 85, and did not survive it. Ended up dying in a hospital alone, with just her husband around, not being able to talk. After 10 days of suffering badly, I'm sure, with a tube down her throat, ending up dying of sepsis. And that was 2020. So all of these people had a couple things in common. They ate meat. That was what was for dinner. This is a generation where when you said what's for dinner, the answer was beef, which it should really be cow. Big cow is going to, portion of a cow is going to be on your plate. Chicken, possibly pork, maybe turkey, ham, whatever. It wasn't, like bean burritos or anything like that. In fact, I know it was in the 70s when I first tasted brown rice and whole beans at a local restaurant, the Heartland Cafe in Rogers Park, that I was like, my whole taste buds and everything woke up. Gritty whole grain bread that was nutty and chewy, and whole grains and beans, they lit my fire. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like amazing food. Salads with like crunchy sunflower seeds and sprouts and an awesome tahini dressing. I mean, this was in the 70s, and crazy as it sounds today, those foods were so exotic to me back then in Chicago neighborhood. So I just want to say that what I've witnessed, my parents, my in-laws experience, is just a drop in the bucket of what I've witnessed among the many clients that Don and I have had over the years, as well as people all around. I know I can look at neighbors and people everywhere and see the suffering that's happening, the decline in their body. They're overweight, some are obese, some have just horrific discoloration, they're on blood thinners and they bruise at the drop of a pin. Serious decline is unfortunately what is more common than the opposite. And if we look at the fact that there's a large percentage of people dying every year of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and many other of these top killers, they are not eating a healthy whole foods diet. They aren't eating a whole lot of plant foods in their natural state at all, in fact. So people can blame the carbs, but the carbs that these type of people eat tend to be refined with salt and possibly with a lot of fat. And the rest of their diet, the centerpiece, the elephant in the room, or should I say the cow on their plate, is the main source of their calories, along with their cheese, dairy, and perhaps their cookies and desserts, which also have butter, saturated fat, palm oil, coconut oil, or whatever might be in it, along with sugar and flour, white and refined. Not whole grains, not naturally sweetened cookies or treats. So it is a combination of those foods, and people who are vegan aren't promoting eating, especially those who are on a whole food plant-based diet, eating refined flours and sugars and things that are going to make people sick. And so, of course, over the years, people get acculturated to these types of foods, and that's what they know how to eat. It's a certain level of density that fills them up in a certain way, and for them to make a switch, it wasn't even heard of. But thankfully, God bless my mom and her youthful, open, willing spirit. She loves everything I prepare and never balks and never made me feel bad for eating it. So those are the first of the important inspirations in my life for going vegan. Stay tuned, more to come. God bless. Hope you all have a nice, happy new year and many better things to come in this upcoming year.